Hi fans, this is JD of Bvtvnews, and I'm back to give y'all the latest and greatest news in the sport of boxing. With that being said, if this is your first time on the channel, I would like to invite you to hit that subscribe button, as well as that notification bell so that you can stay updated on our latest news clips and other content that you will find right here on Boxing Vibes TV. Now, let's get into the boxing news of the day that has kind of taken, the boxing world by storm. And that is that we are no longer getting Keith one-time Thurman versus Tim Tszyu. Unfortunately, over the past few days, Keith Thurman has been out trying to see a few doctors and see if his biceps injury was not that severe and if he could move forward with the bout on next Saturday. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and Keith Thurman has been forced to pull himself from the March 30th bout next Saturday. That's actually a really smart move if you Keith one-time Thurman. You're 35 years old, you've been very inactive, you're injured, and you're going up against a Tim Tszyu who is the kingpin of 154. This is your first time at 154, so you really got the deck stacked against you, man. You got just sit down, bro. You gotta sit down and not put yourself in harm's way, because going into a fight, with one arm against a Tim Tszyu, that's not wise for anybody. So now we don't get Thurman versus Tszyu, and so that ended up putting PBC in kind of a holding pattern, trying to figure out how to save the card. On this card, we also have the funny and comical Rolly Romero against the Raging Bull and Isaac Cruz. They're also on the card. There also was another young gentleman on the card who we last saw last year, about exactly a year ago, getting knocked out in an upset defeat to Brian Mendoza, and that was Mr. Sebastian Fundora. This is the last view we all had of him in the ring.
Doesn't let go of his hands. Now he's trying to...
So Sebastian Fundora was returning to the ring on this card as well. He was scheduled to face off against a Sergey Bicep for a WBC interim belt, because as you all remember, they have stripped Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo has been stripped of a lot of titles, so a lot of his titles are scattered all over the division now. But Sebastian Fundora was scheduled to get back in the ring, trying to get that confidence back, get himself back to where he was prior to the Mendoza knockout against Bicep. He ends up getting a call from Mr. Al Heyman with the opportunity to elevate himself to the main event against Tim Tszyu. And what do you know? Here we now have Tszyu versus Fundora. I must say, in my humble opinion, this is where you need Mr. Manager Bill Haney. I think Mr. Fundora and Sebastian Fundora were on the right track. They were absolutely on the right track. He took a year off from the knockout. You come back, to get yourself back together, get your confidence back, not in against a major opponent, but somebody who's very reputable, 23 wins, all 23 wins by knockout. Bicep is a very formidable fighter who is going to come forward and bring an action-packed fight. I understand it when they give you that call, and it's probably the biggest bag you ever got in your career. It's an opportunity to get Tim Tszyu's WBO strap. It's an opportunity to really put yourself back on the map in front of boxing fans. But I'm going to be honest, man, when the last fight you have was getting knocked slap out by Mendoza, I'm going to be real, man. I would have liked them to stay the course, fight Bicep, get that WBC interim title, and then double the block back to Tim Tszyu after Tim Tszyu would have faced off against somebody else. But nonetheless, sometimes when those great opportunities knock at the door, who am I? Because at the end of the day, there are opportunities that feel just too good to pass up. And it feels like for Sebastian Fundora and his family, it seemed like that Al Heyman offer was just a little bit too enticing for them to stay the course. So here we are with Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora. So you have Tim Tszyu now changing up his whole camp and going from the expectation of fighting a Keith one-time Thurman, who is orthodox and 5'8", to now facing off against a 6'5" Sebastian Fundora, who is a southpaw. This is going to be a very interesting switch at the last minute for Tim Tszyu, but it sounds like Tim Tszyu is with all the smoke. So to him, it appears like it don't matter who it is, he's ready to get in the ring and face off against Sebastian Fundora. Now, Tim Tszyu's last opponent actually is Mr. Mendoza, Mr. Brian Mendoza, who we last saw knocking out Sebastian Fundora. Now, Tim Tszyu didn't knock out Brian Mendoza. Shout out to Brian Mendoza. The boy got a heck of a chin because Tim Tszyu didn't knock him out, but Tim Tszyu was laying that leather on him, bro. Straight laying that leather on him. I mean, the shots were sounding so loud during that fight, I almost thought that they were adding sound effects when Tim Tszyu was hitting Brian Mendoza, man. Check out how that fight was going.
Oh, big right hands. Tim. This is that corner. Body shot's a good one from Mendoza. Oh, he starts to take some shots. Good stuff from Tszyu. He senses a moment here, Tim Tszyu. Mendoza trying to hang on. Tszyu.
So now we get an interesting matchup, contrast of styles, Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora, and that shuffles everything around in an interesting way. Because what actually has gone under the radar and made this an even better card is Mr. Brian Mendoza is back. He's back. He now is on the card facing Sergey Bicep for the WBC interim belt. The fight that Sebastian Fundora was going to take prior to the Keith Thurman injury. So now we have Bicep versus Mendoza. We got Rolly Romero versus Isaac Cruz. And in the main event, we have Sebastian Fundora versus Tim Tszyu. So this is going to be an all-action packed fight. I don't think any three of these fights can miss. Straight up. At this point, I would almost say that this first Amazon Prime card is going to be well worth the money. It's going to be really, really well worth the money. All three of those cards at the top of this bill, you know that fighters are going to come forward and there will be fireworks. I don't think there'll be any boringness going on in on this card next Saturday on March 30th. Now, to get to Mr. Keith one-time Thurman, you got a lot of people calling for him to retire. A lot of people saying that he should hang it up because he's already been so inactive. And I kind of agree and understand a lot of those sentiments that a lot of people have with trying to tell Keith Thurman, hang it up, bro. You're 35 years of age. You've been totally inactive. It's very difficult to rev your body up to an elite level at this particular juncture in your life, especially when you haven't been consistent with staying in the ring. In my opinion, I'm going to throw y'all a little curveball. This is what I kind of would like to see from Keith one-time Thurman. I personally would love to see Keith Thurman go heel up, my brother, and I'd like to see you double back and face one of two people. Either A, I would love to see you face off against